Morgan Chase president, Fed isn't too hawkish and crypto is kind of irrelevant. JPMorgan Chase's president that crypto. Morgan Chase president Daniel Pinto commented on the U.S. economy and cryptocurrency in an interview with CNBC, published Monday. Pinto is also the Global Investment Bank's chief operating officer and CEO of its corporate and investment bank. JPMorgan president stressed that the Federal Reserve cannot allow inflation to become ingrained in the economy, emphasizing that a premature return to easier monetary policy risks repeating the mistakes of the 70s.
Not everyone is convinced by this breakout. Listen to what JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon said about Bitcoin earlier today.
I personally think that Bitcoin is worthless. But I don't want to be a spokesman. I don't care. It makes no difference to me. I don't think you should smoke cigarettes either. You know, but now it comes into like, okay, that's Jamie, now JPMorgan. Our clients are adults. They disagree. That's what makes markets. So if they want to have access to buy or sell Bitcoin, you know, it's hard. We can't custody it, but we can give them legitimate, as clean as possible access.
JPMorgan's wealth management division began offering access to Bitcoin funds earlier this year. Karen, I don't know why I'm going to go to you first, but I will go to you first. It's interesting that, you know, he said, you know, I say don't smoke cigarettes. It's an interesting example to pull out of the air when we're talking about Bitcoin, cigarettes.
Yeah, you know, he's had this opinion for a while. I don't know if you remember. I think it was at a Delivering Alpha conference maybe 2 years ago where he said Bitcoin is a fraud. And that was at around, I don't know, 5,000 maybe, and then walked that back. I mean, you know, Jamie and I can't agree on everything, just, you know, most things. I don't know that this is I don't know. I'm not so pessimistic as he is on Bitcoin. I'm not really sure what this most recent run-up was about. Perhaps it's rising rates and the idea of, well, maybe, you know, the U.S. balance sheet really is going to get out of control. And if that's the case, the whole fiat currency weakening, which is one of the central points of Bitcoin, that I think might be part of it. But it's also one other interesting thing is happening, though. A lot of the other cryptocurrencies aren't really doing particularly well. Ether's doing well, but then there's a bunch of them, Solana and Cosmos and Chain, that have really not done well at all in the last few weeks as Bitcoin's had this run. I'm not sure why that is. They had huge runs going up. But all that having been said, Jamie and I are going to have to just agree to disagree on this one.
Like a lover's quarrel. The cryptos that Karen had mentioned him, those are the ones typically tied to believing, you know, for DeFi or decentralized finance sort of oriented cryptocurrencies. Do you think there's a link here?
Well, I just would go back to JPMorgan and say that they're not in the business of being first in almost anything right now. And they're the most powerful financial institution in the world. I think Jamie Dimon is one of the most talented executives. I don't have the same crush that Karen does. I just think, well, I put it this way. He's you know, I thought that was a very deft sidestep of what he thinks going on with Bitcoin prices for a guy that's, you know, I think it was September 17th, 2017, he called it a fraud. And at 4,000, it went to 18 to 20,000 within, you know, 4 or 5 months. I don't think he needs to make a call on this. I think JPMorgan and JPMorgan Asset Management recognizing this is what their clients want, and this is, you know, on some level, just the beginning. This is great for Bitcoin. By the way, he's been great for Bitcoin. So I'll leave it at that. I think, you know, efficacy and real, I would just say, use cases for some of the DeFi tokens out there and platforms is still, I'd say, somewhat away. And I think the more important dynamic here is really the institutional adoption and regulation of Bitcoin, but of digital tokens.
Let's say you have JPMorgan in your portfolio, Guy, and it's a long-term investment, so not necessarily under the fast money moniker per se. But hearing those comments from Jamie Dimon, let's say you're a young person, you know, you've got Bitcoin, you're a believer in cryptocurrencies and the blockchain. Does this make you even think a little bit that maybe JPMorgan is not being headed by somebody who will steward the company towards the future of decentralized finance and that other world where things aren't necessarily run through institutions?
That's an interesting question. No is the answer. I mean, I think he's been pretty Listen, I don't know when it was, but he was beginning of this year. He was pretty forthright about the threats to conventional banking system, all the things we're talking about now. And JPMorgan, quite frankly, to a large extent, is probably ahead of the curve on that front. Now, his opinions notwithstanding, I think he made that point. Like, he doesn't believe in it, but it doesn't mean our clients don't, and we shouldn't service our clients. And just one point, I don't know if you're a Coming to America fan, Melm. I'm sure you are, but there was a scene when Eddie Murphy went to a St. John's game at Madison Square Garden, and he stood up at halftime and basically said, "In the face." And Bitcoin did an in the face today to Jamie Dimon, because 2 years ago on the same comments, it trades down 10% like this. Today it went higher. It's a really interesting price movement on the back of those comments.
Got a good chuckle from Bonawyn, but nobody else.